On the Fowler Show, we've been closely following Donald Trump's cabinets and their dealings, and the shocking pattern has emerged. Over and over again, Trump cabinet members are under investigation for shady dealings, from using taxpayer dollars to finance campaign trips, to lavish trips to Europe, to tapping into a wildfire fund to take a helicopter tour of Nevada. These guys are doing it all. Let's break it down and see how shady Donald Trump's cabinet actually is. This segment is the Political Maniacs. Trump's cabinet under investigation. Now let's start with former HHS Secretary, or Health and Human Service Secretary, Tom Price. The first one to fall in Trump's shady cabinet, or we like to call him the swamp cabinet. Now, Tom Price resigned after racking up at least $400,000 in travel bills for chartered flights and undermining President Trump's promise to drain the swamp. So we're going to let's listen to what he had to, just take a listen.
Well, I want to say to the Speaker, don't you fly over our country in your luxury jet and lecture us on what it means to be an American. Don't you tell us about America.
Now, here's the thing about Tom Price, right? So that was him on the House floor, basically showing his hypocrisy. But this guy, so here's what did it for me. Now, I follow this Tom Price story very carefully. And, you know, I understand the notion or the ideal of, idea of going, you have to go to a remote place of the country and there's no way to get there, so you take a prop plane to get there. But this guy, and this was, I think, the moment where Washington said, what did you just do? And I think, and we have one of our producers is from Philly, as everybody knows. And I think he was with the one who said, really? Tom Price took a chartered plane from Washington, D.C.'s Reagan Airport, which is like, 5 minutes, 10 minutes from HHS with traffic, right? To Philadelphia's International Airport. Now, for most people who live in Washington or in this tri-state area, that's when they said, what? He did what? A private? People don't even fly to Philly. Like if you live in DC, you don't fly to Philly. You take the Amtrak. This guy has a motorcade. Like you could motorcade it to Philly. Like by the time you get on the plane and you take off and you land in Philly, you might as well have just taken the train. It's an hour train ride. So that's swamp mate number one. Now let's talk about swamp mate number two. EPA Chief Scott Pruitt. Now Pruitt traveled to North Africa's nation of Morocco, where he promoted trade in liquefied natural gas. The trip to Morocco lasted 4 days and cost 40,000 hard-earned taxpayer dollars. Pruitt was reportedly accompanied by 4 other officials from EPA. After the trip came to light, Pruitt said that he was in Morocco to discuss how to enhance the environmental stewardship around the world. This trip isn't in line with EPA's mission to protect human health and the environment. The trip is being investigated by the Inspector General. Pruitt has taken frequent trips to Oklahoma, where some believe he is laying the groundwork for a senatorial or gubernatorial campaign. His flights to the Sooner State on either private jet or military aircraft have cost you at home $58,000. So just based on Fowler Show research, we are close to almost $90,000 in useless travel put on by our Environmental Protection Agency administrator. This is a man who doesn't care about, he thinks climate change doesn't exist. He wants to gut the entire agency. He's really not trying to protect the environment. He really should be called not the Environment Protection Chief. He should be like the Environment Exploiter Chief. That's what his new title should be. And he's exploiting the environment, and he's using your tax dollars to do it. And based on our research, $98,000 in plane fares, some of which to his home country, to his home state, mind you, America. There are flights, domestic flights, on American Airlines, on United, on Southwest, on Spirit, maybe not Spirit, but on all the other major carriers that could take you from Washington, D.C. to Oklahoma, and I guarantee you, you won't spend $58,000. Moving on to Veteran Affairs Secretary David Sulkin. The VA's Inspector General has been reviewing Sulkin's July business trip to London and Denmark, which included a meeting with the Danish and UK officials, as well as a stop at, wait for it, Wimbledon. Because, you know, helping our veterans get health care involves stopping at a tennis tournament. Yes, indeed, America is true. At a cost of at least $122,000, Sulkin and his wife and 3 VA staffers, all of whom took their spouses along with them, one of whom, took their spouses along with them, traveled to Wimbledon. Now, we believe in facts matter, and so Secretary Sulkin has paid back the government. He mailed a check to the government to cover his wife's ticket, as well as wife's ticket and wife's travel expenses to Wimbledon, which says to me, America, that he shouldn't have been at Wimbledon to begin with. So he's using your tax dollars to the tune of six figures to take his wife back, to a tennis match. And basically his chief of staff, they have record of his chief of staff doctoring emails and making false statements to create the pretext for taxpayers to cover their trip to the tennis match. And my favorite in the swamp cabinet, no, it's not Betsy DeVos, but she's one of my favorites too. When it comes to brains, she has none. Anyway, now I'm not talking about her, I'm talking about the other one. When it comes to brains, he has none. I'm talking about our Interior Secretary, Ryan Zinke, who on his first day decided to show up with the cavalry. No, I mean literally. He showed up with a horse. And he's so inspired by Queen Elizabeth that when he shows up to work, the interior flag is raised above the building, because he's the definition of royalty if you've ever seen it. Don't worry, I'm being facetious. The Interior Secretary wrongly tapped into a wildfire fund to take a helicopter tour of Nevada last year, costing you at home $39,000. The Department of Interior have discussed billing the Wildfire Preparedness Fund for Zinke's use of the chartered helicopter. But that's not all. He's been in the news for taking private jets from Las Vegas to his ranch in Montana. And that, America, is costing you $12,375. It's wild. And the 4-hour flight to Montana enabled Zinke to attend a dinner where he spoke to the Vegas Golden Knights, a new National Hockey League team that is owned by one of Zinke's most generous political donors. So all in all, I think if you talk about just these 4 secretaries, we're almost close to $500,000 in fraud, waste, and abuse. America, talk about draining the swamp. We're not draining it, we're swimming in it.